Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about what the everyday life of a medieval executioner was really like. This is the story of a person who was feared and hated by everyone in the city, but without whom no justice could take place. But before you get comfortable, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what city you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I love seeing who's joined us. Now get comfortable. We're starting. You awaken long before dawn. There is no rooster for you, no gentle sunlight through well-oiled shutters. Only the thick, bone gnawing cold that seeps into your thin wool blanket and gnaws at your marrow. Your room is little more than a box of old, splintered wood. The mattress, if you could call it that, is a sack of straw, damp from last week's rain and speckled with the droppings of mice that make more cheerful company than your neighbors. You cough, and your breath appears as a mist in the thin slice of moonlight coming through the crack in the wall. The smell of mildew, stale air, and rot is as familiar as the ache in your joints. You lie still for a moment, listening to the world outside, a world that wants nothing to do with you. Footsteps echo in the distance, drunks, perhaps, weaving their way home from the tavern, or maybe just the wind and your imagination. In any case, no one comes near your house unless they must, and then only for business that nobody else wants to touch. You stretch and your muscles complain. Even your own bones seem to rebel against your profession. The floor is cold and gritty under your feet. You shuffle toward the battered table in the corner, where the leftovers of last night's meal, hard crusts of bread, and a cup of water gone slightly green, wait for you, half covered by a rag, to keep off the rats. Hunger is as constant as your reputation, and you are never entirely rid of either. You move quietly, out of habit. It is not fear, it is not even shame anymore. It is simply the knowledge that the less attention you attract, the fewer stones you find thrown at your windows in the morning. Even the village cats give your house a wide berth. The only creature that tolerates your presence is a one-eyed crow who sits on your roof and watches you with an intelligence you find vaguely unsettling. You pause at the threshold, looking out at the world through the narrow gap in your door. The street is empty, save for a beggar sleeping beneath a ruined wagon. He shivers and pulls a ragged blanket over his head as if to shield himself from the possibility of seeing you. There is something fitting in this. Two men on the edges of society, neither quite belonging, both equally invisible. You recall, not for the first time, that you were not always an outcast. Once, you were a child with dirt on your knees and hopes that reached no further than the next festival. Then came the plague, the hunger, the riots. Then came the offer, a job, a wage, a house, a future of sorts. All you had to do was what no one else would. All you had to do was become the one they needed, but could not bear to love. You eat your crusts slowly, savoring their staleness, which is at least reliable. You drink your water and ignore the taste. There is no time for luxury, no place for it in a life measured out in chores and silences. You count out the tasks ahead of you, check the tools, sharpen the axe, fetch water from the well before the others rise, and hope you do not meet too many eyes along the way. When you step outside, the sky is an indifferent gray. The mud in the street clings to your boots, thick as tar, and the morning air is so cold that your teeth chatter. You wrap your cloak tighter and move quickly, as if by hurrying you could escape your reputation. But your shadow stretches behind you, long and inescapable. You think, not for the first time, that there are worse things than being hated. You could be forgotten, but even the forgotten do not have your job. As you pass the first shuttered house, you hear the familiar scrape of wood and muttered prayers. Someone inside makes a sign to ward off evil. You keep your head down and your eyes on the ground. There will be no warm greetings for you, no cheerful neighbors offering bread or news, only silence, suspicion, and, if you are lucky, a few minutes of peace before the day's business begins. In the distance, the church bell tolls, a hollow sound that signals another day of waiting, working, and watching, another day of doing what needs to be done. You walk on, and the mud sucks at your boots, as if the earth itself would like to pull you down and swallow you whole. Your house, your street, your role in this world, all are inescapable. You are the executioner, and this is your life. Breakfast in your world is not a ritual of comfort. It is an act of necessity, as uninspiring and obligatory as the work that waits for you on the square. You return to your hovel, shaking off clods of mud from your boots. There is a certain ceremony to this. Scrape, stomp, curse softly at the splinters pricking through the worn soles. You wish you had better boots, but no cobbler would dream of fitting the feet of a man like you. Inside, the chill is even more biting. You fumble for kindling, your fingers stiff, and coax a few weak flames from yesterday's ashes. The fire, much like your reputation, only barely clings to life. You feed it grudgingly. Some straw, a splinter of last year's fence, a handful of dry moss, and it responds with a sullen glow, filling the air with smoke and the scent of burnt neglect. Your breakfast is as welcoming as your fire. On the rickety table, where a proper home might display a cloth or a pitcher of cider, you have a wooden plate holding the remains of yesterday's meal, bread so hard you could bludgeon a rat with it, a thin crust of cheese going blue at the edges, and a cup half full of milk that already hints at sourness. There is a single apple, small, worm bitten, its skin puckered like the faces of your neighbors when they see you. You break the bread, listening to it crack, and gnaw at it like a desperate animal. Each bite is work, each chew a reminder that everything here is earned the hard way, or not at all. You cut the cheese with a knife you sharpen yourself, because no one in the market will let you near theirs. You remember the first time you tried to buy cheese after you took the job. The woman at the stall set her knife down and wiped her hands on her apron as if you were an infection. She sold you the cheese anyway, but only after every other customer was gone and with a price twice as high as the day before. The milk is your own. It comes from the only cow in the village whose udders do not shrink away at your touch. The villagers pretend they cannot smell the difference between your milk and anyone else's, but you have noticed that when they buy milk, they make a show of buying it from the next village over. The few who risk your milk do so in secret, glancing over their shoulders, always quick to pay, always quicker to leave. You think of this as you eat, the way the world has shrunk for you. There are so many boundaries now, lines that cannot be crossed. The threshold of a neighbor's house, the benches at the tavern, even the steps of the church. You exist in the blank spaces between, visible only when there is blood to be spilled or a body to be buried. Your apple, at least, is yours alone. You bite into it. It is mealy, tasteless, and slightly brown inside. You eat it anyway. You have learned not to be picky. Picky people in your position grow thin and ill, and the town cannot afford an executioner too weak to swing the axe. Outside, you hear the village waking, cartwheels creak, chickens squawk, and somewhere a dog barks at nothing. These are the sounds of other people's mornings, lives untouched by the particular stain that clings to you. Children shriek and laugh, and you imagine their parents whispering warnings. Do not go near that house. That is where the hangman lives. Sometimes, when you pass, the bravest of the children will pelt you with stones or spit in the dirt behind you. You have grown used to this. It is better than what the adults do. The adults simply look away, as if you are not there at all. You finish your meal with slow, stubborn determination. There is never quite enough, but there is always something. Hunger, in your house, is a dull, constant ache. It reminds you of your place in the world. You are not meant for comfort, not meant for fullness or contentment. You are a tool, a necessity that everyone despises but cannot discard. After breakfast, you rinse the plate in a bucket of stale water. You save the crusts for the crow that visits your roof. You have named him, though never aloud, because names are a kind of kindness, and you are careful with kindness these days. The crow cocks his head when you appear, and sometimes you fancy that he understands you better than most humans. You take a moment at the window, peering through the greasy glass. The day is beginning in earnest now. Smoke rises from a dozen chimneys. People bustle and scurry. You watch them and wonder if they ever think of you, and if they do, whether it is with fear or disgust. Probably both. You are not the sort of man people pray for. You are the sort of man people pray will pass them by. With a sigh, you gather your things, your cloak, your battered gloves, your leather apron with its stains that never quite wash out. Your tools wait for you in the corner, iron and wood. blunt with use and patched with whatever scraps you can find. You pack a slice of bread for later and stow the cheese in a pouch. Everything you carry is marked in some small way by your job. You open the door and step out into the day. The sun is just a pale ghost behind the clouds, barely warming the street. You close your door, hear the latch click, and remind yourself that for all its squalor, this is still your home. No one else would want it, but it is yours. The crow flaps down, snatches a crust, and regards you with what might be sympathy or hunger. It is hard to tell the difference. You set off, bread in your bag, and the weight of your work settling on your shoulders. Another day begins, as heavy as the last, as gray and predictable as the stones in the road. You know what awaits you. Before any sentence can be carried out, before the crowd gathers with their hungry eyes and nervous laughter, before the axe falls or the rope tightens, there is preparation. This, too, is a part of your daily bread, tedious, dirty, never ending. You return inside, where your tools of trade sit in their usual corner, just out of the cold draft, resting against the rough hewn wall like sleeping hounds. You begin with the axe. You remember a time when the edge was keen, the handle oiled and new, when you tried to keep your tools in better shape than your own hands. But now, with every passing year, rust claims a little more of the blade, and the wood dries and cracks. You run your finger along the blade, testing for nicks, and wince as you find one, small but sharp enough to draw the bead of blood. That is the way of things here. Blood comes easily, in small ways, and in large. You take out the whetstone, a relic from someone else's life, and begin to sharpen the axe. Back and forth, the stone rasps against metal, each pass a reminder that every tool in your home serves a single grim purpose. There are no tools for planting, no instruments for music, only implements of pain and finality. The grind is slow, your hands are stiff from the cold, your arms still sore from the last execution, but you persist. This is your craft, if it can be called that. You know the old stories, how a good executioner could sever a head in one stroke, how the condemned would beg for a quick, clean end. You are careful with the edge, not out of kindness, but out of professionalism. A dull axe leads to suffering, and suffering leads to chaos on the scaffold. Chaos is your enemy. You do not need more eyes upon you, judging, waiting for you to fail. When the axe is as sharp as you can make it, you set it aside and turn to the rope. The fibers are coarse and stained, already fraying in places. You measure out lengths, knot and unknot with a practiced hand. The gallows has its own demands. Too short, and the neck will not break. Too long, and the condemned will suffer a slow, ignoble end. You know all the ways a hanging can go wrong, and you have seen every one of them. You wipe your hands on your apron and check your other tools. Shackles, worn smooth from years of desperate hands. a wooden block for the condemned to kneel upon, a bucket for, well, for after. You make a mental list: oil for the hinges, fresh sand for the scaffold, rags to clean up after the spectacle. Nothing glamorous. No one will thank you for your attention to detail, but they will certainly curse you for any mistake. You prepare your apron next. Leather, thick and cracked, covered in stains that never come out, no matter how long you scrub. You remember your first day in this job, when you thought it might be possible to keep the leather clean, as if cleanliness could somehow shield you from what you had to do. That illusion did not last. Now, the stains are as much a part of your uniform as the badge you wear on market days, the one the city fathers insisted on, so that everyone knows who you are. You pause and glance around your house. There is a moment, brief and almost holy, where you allow yourself to wish for another life. One where your mornings might be spent tending a garden or mending a net, where your tools would be for making, not for ending. But the moment passes, as all your moments do, and you return to the work at hand. You pack the smaller tools in a worn leather sack and sling it over your shoulder. The axe you carry in your hand, wrapped in cloth, not to hide it. Everyone knows what it is, but to keep it from collecting more dirt before its grim use. You grab the rope and loop it neatly. Everything in its place, everything ready. You have learned that order is your only comfort, the one shield against the chaos of the mob and the unpredictability of human nature. Before you leave, you check the small chest under your cot. Inside are the few coins you have managed to save, a meager pile, not enough to buy freedom, not even enough for a new blade. You count them out of habit, knowing that today's work may add a few more or may not. Payment is never prompt and often comes with gritted teeth and reluctant hands. The village needs you, but it does not want you. You take one last look at your reflection in the blackened window. Your hair is graying, your eyes tired, your jaw set in the expression that has become as much a mask as any hood. You practice, just for a heartbeat, a smile, and find it does not fit. It has been too long since you smiled and meant it. You gather your things and step outside again, tools in hand, face to the wind. The day is waiting, and so is your work. You are the executioner, and every detail of your morning is a step toward fulfilling that role, unwanted, unavoidable, utterly necessary. The town may loathe you, but it cannot do without you. You walk away from your house, leaving behind the lingering smoke, the lonely crow, and the remnants of your breakfast. The morning is colder than before, as if the world itself resents your presence. But you keep moving. Your pace is steady, your grip on the axe firm. Today, like every day, your preparation is its own kind of ritual, a grim insurance against mistakes, against suffering, against losing even more of yourself to the job that defines you. You reach the end of the lane, turn toward the square, and do not look back. You step out into the morning with your tools. Axe in one hand, rope slung over your shoulder, a battered bag with all the other necessary instruments banging against your hip. The world outside your door is the same as it was yesterday, and the day before that, and every day since you took up this office. Gray, unwelcoming, indifferent to your existence, unless you are needed for the city's dirty business. The street you walk is not paved, it is a churn of mud, horse dung, and the runoff from every chamber pot emptied in the night. Your boots sink with every step. You used to try and walk around the deepest puddles, but after the first few years, you realized it made no difference. The filth finds you one way or another. It clings to your souls the way your work clings to your name. The other early risers give you a wide berth. You see them, a baker's boy, barefoot and shivering, hauling sacks of flour, a woman in a patched shawl carrying a basket of eggs, an old man who nods, not in greeting, but in grim acknowledgement, as if to say, I see you, and I wish I did not. Sometimes you wonder if they see you as a man at all, or only as a function, a living warning that the world is not just or merciful, but simply organized around violence and the desperate hope it will not fall upon them. No one says good morning. That custom belongs to other people, to those who bake bread, or shoe horses, or sell ribbons in the market. Your presence turns conversations into silence, laughter into muttered curses. A group of children stands at the edge of the square, staring at you with wide, wary eyes. One of them spits in the dirt. Another, braver or perhaps just meaner, calls after you. Hangman! Hangman! The others join in, chanting, voices rising like the cawing of crows. You do not react. You learned long ago that even a glance in their direction will set their mothers off into fits and whispers. You keep your eyes on the ground, where the patterns of boots and hooves tell the story of the morning's business. Once you tried to walk with your head held high, as if dignity could be armor. That was before the first rotten turnip struck you behind the ear, before the priest stopped blessing your house, before you accepted that you are no longer part of this world, but apart from it. At the corner, a stray dog limps away from you, tail between its legs. Even animals sense something in your scent, something carried on your skin that marks you as other. You see a cart stuck in the mud, its owner cursing, trying to budge it. You would help once, but that ended in shouting and a thrown stone. You pass by now, invisible except when you are useful. The market stalls are only just being set up. Merchants hammer boards into place, arrange baskets of onions, apples, stale bread. They avoid looking at you. Once a new merchant called out to offer you an apple, and the silence that followed was so deep and cold that even he seemed to feel it. He never spoke to you again. You reach the main street. Here, the houses are closer together, their shutters painted in colors that must have been bright long ago, but now look tired, faded by years of weather and indifference. Occasionally, You catch a pair of eyes at a window, watching you from behind a curtain. The faces vanish the instant you notice. People prefer not to witness your passage, as if to do so might make them next. As you walk, you recall how your own mother used to say the main street was the backbone of the village, connecting every house and shop to the heart of the town, the square. You used to imagine that heart beating strong and bright. Now you know better. The heart of the town is a stage, and you are its actor, called upon when the town needs a lesson, a scapegoat, or a spectacle. You pass the old well, its stones slick with moss, its rope worn thin by the hands of 100 desperate women. Once you tried to draw water here, but were told in no uncertain terms that your hands were not welcome. Now you draw your water from the muddy edge of the river where no one else goes. Ahead, the square comes into view. Even empty, it feels crowded. The scaffold looms at its center, a grim geometry of wood and rope, already casting a long shadow in the pale morning light. You see the stains on the boards, some fresh, some old as your tenure. No one bothers to clean them properly. That too falls to you. You pause at the edge of the square, taking a breath. Here, even the pigeons seem to avoid you. The executioner's place is clear, on the scaffold, above the crowd, but never truly among them. You scan the space, checking for loose boards, signs of tampering. Once, years ago, someone sabotaged the trapdoor, hoping for a botched hanging. It was you who fixed it, of course. Who else would touch the gallows? The city watch is not here yet. They always arrive late, hoping the crowd will swell on its own, saving them the trouble of forcing people to attend. You know most of them by name. They pretend not to know yours. You walk to the scaffold and begin your inspection. You kneel in the mud, hands searching for splinters, testing the strength of the posts. The wood groans under your weight, but holds. You check the trapdoor's hinges, oiled yesterday with the last of your lamp fat. You mutter to yourself as you work, a habit born from years of silence. You look up and see, at the far side of the square, a group of boys, older now, some of them the same ones who once pelted you with stones. They watch you with sullen eyes, daring you to acknowledge them. You do not. The scaffold is your only company now. You stand and wipe your hands, leaving dark smears on your apron. The day has truly begun. Soon the crowd will gather. Soon you will become, again, the lesson and the warning, the necessary evil. You rest your hand on the rough wood and feel, for a moment, the long, slow heartbeat of the town, steady, grim, indifferent. You close your eyes. You are the executioner, and the square is waiting. You do not wait long. The square, still gray in the weak light, slowly fills with movement and noise. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows as if announcing your arrival to a world that would rather forget you exist. The shops open, one by one, their doors creaking on rusty hinges. People pass along the edge of the square, careful to avoid the shadow of the scaffold, careful not to look in your direction. Everyone is careful this morning. And then, from the side street leading up from the barracks, you hear the steady tramp of boots. The city guard, never early and never late, arrive with the precise kind of efficiency that suggests they wish they were anywhere else. You count them without meaning to. 5 men, each one chosen for height and broad shoulders, armored in mismatched plates that clink and scrape. At their head, as always, is Captain Willem. Willem is younger than you, but not by much. His hair is still thick, his hands unscarred. You have watched him grow into his role, from the uncertain apprentice who could not meet your eyes to the man who now leads with a voice that brooks no argument, not even from you. He does not smile when he greets you. He never does. He stops a measured distance away, the guards fanning out behind him. You note their postures, rigid but uneasy, each one holding his spear a little tighter, as if you might suddenly lunge at them with your axe and turn the day into a legend. Willem gives you the same look he always does, a blend of distaste, obligation, and the faintest glimmer of pity, carefully hidden behind official duty. Executioner, he says, as if your name has worn thin from overuse. He holds out a folded paper, the city's seal pressed into a blob of red wax that is already beginning to crack. You take the paper, careful not to touch his fingers. No one likes to be touched by you, least of all Willem. You break the seal and read the order, written in a script that tries too hard to look dignified. The crime is stated simply: theft. The name is unfamiliar to you. Most of them are these days. The sentence is clear, signed and witnessed, stamped by men who will never have to see what you will see. The paper smells of candle wax, dried sweat, and something metallic. You wonder if it is your imagination, or if every order carries with it the faint odor of blood pressed into the fibers by so many years of routine. Willem waits as you read, his eyes scanning your face for any sign of emotion. You have learned to give him none. When you finish, you fold the paper and tuck it into your apron. The guards shift, boots scuffing against the packed earth. Someone in the growing crowd spits. It is not for you, not exactly, but you know the direction of their fear. Willem clears his throat. He will be brought here within the hour. The crowd must see justice done. You know the rest. He says this every time, as if the ritual could somehow disguise the fact that the man about to die was someone's son, someone's friend, someone who, until last night, still believed he might escape the city's notice. You nod. The exchange is done. Willem hesitates for a heartbeat, then adds, "The priest will come. He asks that you wait." You almost laugh, but catch yourself. The priest always asks that you wait. He arrives late, prays quickly, and leaves even faster, never glancing at your face. You wonder if he prays for the condemned or for himself. The guards fan out to their places around the square. Some keep their eyes fixed on the crowd, others on the scaffold, a few on you. You wonder, idly, if they draw lots to see who will stand nearest to you each time. None of them speaks to you. Once, many years ago, one did. He tried to make a joke, something about gallows humor, how the rope was the real judge in this city. The others did not laugh, neither did you. He does not come any more. You move to your post at the edge of the scaffold. The axe feels heavier in your hand, as if it absorbs the weight of every eye that will soon be watching. You check the knots on the rope, your hands moving automatically. Everything is as it should be, order in a world that prefers chaos. The crowd thickens. Faces you do not know, faces you do. A few are eager, eyes bright with anticipation. Most are wary, pretending to look elsewhere, but they're never straying far from the edge of the action. Someone hawks bread, another sells watered wine. Children jostle for a better view. It is all a game until it is not. You catch sight of a mother dragging her son away from the front row. He protests, and she mutters something about, "Not today, not for this one." You wonder if the condemned is someone she knows, or if she simply remembers that you were a child once too. Willem and his men are all business. They check the crowd, nod to the merchants, clear a space near the scaffold. When they speak, their voices are clipped, brisk. You imagine, for a moment, what it must be like to be one of them, to wear a uniform and be hated only for a little while, to be forgotten after the crowd disperses. You are never forgotten, not for a day, not for an hour. Time stretches. The sun creeps higher, reluctant and pale. The condemned has not arrived. The priest, as promised, is nowhere to be seen. The crowd grows restless. A bottle is thrown, shattering on the stones. The guards tense, hands on hilts, ready to remind the town who keeps order when your axe is not enough. You wait. You have become an expert in waiting, in silence, in letting the world move around you as if you are a rock in a river, something that cannot be swept away, no matter how much everyone wishes it could. Willem glances at you once more, the faintest flicker of apology in his eyes. You nod, just enough for him to know you see it. That is all you can do, all that is left for you. You stand on the edge of the scaffold, order in your hand, axe at your side, surrounded by the careful, professional indifference of men who know what must be done, but will never do it themselves. The crowd watches, the square waits. Another morning in a life measured out in waiting and routine. You set to work. There is nothing noble in the way you go about it, nothing ceremonial or sacred, just habit, repetition, and the heavy knowledge that each step you take has been taken 100 times before and will be taken 100 times again. The scaffold is yours to tend. No one else will touch it. You start with the boards. They are old, warped by rain and sun, their grain blackened in places by blood that no amount of sand or scrubbing can quite erase. You kneel, running your hands over the surface, feeling for splinters or loose nails. The memory of last winter's accident, when a plank gave way under your boot and nearly sent you tumbling in front of the crowd, is still fresh. No one would have mourned you. The crowd would have jeered, the guards would have shrugged, and the city fathers would have sent for the next man desperate enough to take your place. Still, you prefer to leave the spectacle to others. Your own death should be quieter when it comes. With a small hammer and a handful of bent nails scavenged from your own roof repairs, you set to tightening what you can. The hammer is not much, just a chunk of iron lashed to a stick, but it does its work. The thud of metal on wood echoes across the empty square, a rhythm almost like a heartbeat. The crowd pays no mind yet. You are still invisible, not quite part of the coming show. Not yet. You move to the trap door, that marvel of rough engineering. You test the hinges, working them back and forth. Yesterday's oil has done its job, but you know that one missed day is all it takes for the whole thing to seize up. The rope dangles above, already knotted, already waiting. You check the knot, as you always do, running it through your fingers, feeling the fibers for any sign of rot or weakness. It is a good rope, or as good as a length of hemp can be. It has seen many necks. If the town ever needed to count its sins, it could start with these knots. A sudden gust of wind sends dust swirling across the scaffold. You squint, blinking grit from your eyes. For a moment, you imagine the dust is something else, ash perhaps, or the dry remains of every condemned man and woman whose story ended here. The feeling passes. You finish with the rope, tugging on it until you are satisfied it will hold. No one thanks you for this work. No one ever does. You check the ladder, counting rungs, testing each one with your boot. Once, years ago, a rung snapped under a condemned man's weight. He fell, bruised but unbroken, and the crowd howled with laughter. It was your job to drag him back up, to tie the knot again, to finish what had begun. It is not the kind of memory that keeps you awake at night. It is simply another entry in the long ledger of things gone wrong. As you move about the platform, you sense eyes on you, not the eager stares of the crowd. Those will come soon enough, but a smaller, sharper gaze. You look down and see a knot of boys, filthy and thin, huddled near the edge of the square. They watch you with a kind of fascinated hatred, daring each other to shout an insult or throw a stone. Once, when you were still new to this job, you chased them away. Now you let them stay. Their jeers are nothing compared to what waits for you later. You take a moment to sweep the platform, your old broom barely more than a bundle of twigs. Each stroke raises more dust than it settles, but you persist. You sweep not for the crowd, but for yourself, for the order it brings, however temporary. You work around the stains, around the dark patch where last month's condemned bled out after the axe bit deep, but not deep enough. You think, not for the first time, that it is strange how little the city cares for this place, how eager it is to forget what happens here as soon as the crowd disperses. You finish your rounds with a bucket of sand, scattering it over the worst patches where the wood grows slippery with old blood. The sand is gritty, sticking to your hands and knees. You save a little for the steps, knowing someone will stumble anyway. Someone always does. With the boards checked, the rope tested, and the platform swept, you turn to your tools. You lay them out on a low bench: axe, rope, a knife for cutting bonds or, when needed, throats. You arrange them in order, handle to blade, not to coil. The leather of your apron creaks as you bend and stand, its surface mottled with old stains that have long since stopped troubling you. Each tool has its place. You know their weight, their balance. You know which ones need mending and which ones you hope not to use. You look over the edge of the scaffold, scanning the square. The crowd is thicker now, pressing in at the margins. The guards stand stiff, spears in hand, their faces set in careful masks of boredom and disgust. A few townsfolk linger at a distance, muttering to each other, their eyes flicking to you and then away. You catch a glimpse of the priest, robes flapping, moving through the crowd with all the grace of a man walking into a storm. You take a deep breath, letting the smell of dust, sweat, and old wood fill your lungs. For a moment, you imagine you are somewhere else, on a dock maybe, or in a field, working with hands that build instead of break. But the moment passes. It always does. You finish your preparations in silence. There is nothing more to do. Everything is ready: the platform, the rope, the axe, your mind. The condemned will arrive soon. The crowd will hush. The guards will form a line. The priest will say his hurried prayers, and you will do what you have always done. You step back, surveying your work. It is not beautiful, but it is yours. The crowd does not see you now, not truly. They see only the shape of what is to come, the promise of justice or vengeance, or simply the end of someone else's suffering. They do not see your hands, cracked and raw, or your back, bent from years of lifting, or the way your heart still pounds, even after all this time. You wait on the scaffold, alone at the center of a stage no one else wishes to touch, watching the city gather around you, eager for the show to begin. You have finished your tasks, and now comes the longest part of any day: waiting. The crowd is gathering, but not for you, never for you. You are the backdrop, the silent set piece, the living machinery behind the city's morality play. The scaffold creaks softly as you shift your weight, axe resting across your knees, eyes fixed on a knot in the wood that has, over the years, come to resemble a screaming mouth. Below you, life resumes its slow, relentless churn. The market on the far side of the square is a riot of sound and color, laughter and haggling, people living their ordinary lives at the edge of your world. The baker, the cobbler, the woman who spins wool, none of them will come close, not today. Some years ago, you might have envied them. Now you simply watch, the way a stone might watch the river flow past, unmoved and unmoving. The crowd grows in fits and starts. First, the early arrivers, boys with sharp elbows and sharper tongues, eager for any sign of blood or shame they can carry home and trade for the attention of their fathers. They throw stones at each other, at the stray dogs circling the edge of the square, at the scaffold if they think you are not looking. You ignore them. Their courage ends where your shadow begins. Next come the women with baskets, who pretend to examine the day's vegetables while glancing at the growing knot of townsfolk. They whisper, eyes darting between the scaffold and the faces in the crowd. Gossip, like blood, is a currency here, and every execution is an opportunity to invest in rumor. The men follow, some with the forced confidence of those who believe themselves above your work, others with the furtive, hungry look of men who wish, deep down, that the scaffold would claim someone else today. You know their faces, the butcher, who gives you a thin, nervous smile, the blacksmith, who stares straight through you as if you were not there, the tailor, who used to let his daughter play with your children before she learned what you did for a living. You watch as the children clamber onto crates and barrels, jostling for the best view. The city guard does nothing to stop them. Today, their job is to maintain order, not to protect innocence. You scan the faces, noting the familiar and the new. Some are here for the spectacle, others for revenge or justice, or because there is nowhere else to go. From your vantage point, you see the life of the city in miniature, petty quarrels, quiet conversations, trades made in the open and behind hands. You wonder if any of them, when night falls, ever think about the men and women who end their days on this scaffold. You doubt it. There are too many distractions, too many little deaths to be tallied before the big one. You glance up at the sky, searching for the crow. It is perched on the roof of the apothecary, feathers glossy black, head tilted as it regards the scene below. You have come to think of it as a companion of sorts. It never judges, never flinches. You imagine sometimes that it is waiting for you, too. The square fills. The voices of the crowd rise and fall, a steady undercurrent of anticipation and dread. The condemned has not yet arrived, and so they invent stories about the crime, about the guilt, about what they would do if they were in your place. You hear snatches of their conversations, all variations on a single theme. At least it is not me. The city guard moves among the crowd, prodding here, shushing there. You watch Willem, his shoulders tense, his face set in a mask of professional disinterest. You wonder sometimes how he sleeps at night, or if the faces he sees are the same as the ones that visit you in your dreams. The priest arrives, late as always. His robes are too clean, his eyes too quick to look away from yours. He mutters a greeting, barely more than a grunt, and disappears into the throng, seeking out the family of the condemned. You know he will say his prayers, offer words of comfort that will settle on the air like dust and be just as quickly swept away. Minutes drag. The crowd, denied its spectacle, grows restless. Someone starts a song, bawdy and tuneless, but it fizzles before the chorus. An old woman hawks pickled eggs, shouting over the din. The sun creeps higher, sending shadows crawling across the scaffold. You shift, feeling the ache in your knees, the weight of your tools. You take the opportunity to survey the platform one last time, checking the rope, the trap door, the position of the axe. Everything is as it should be. Order in the midst of chaos. You have learned that you can control only these small things. The rest, the crowd, the condemned, the slow march of justice, is as unpredictable as the weather. You watch the faces in the crowd, and they watch you back, some with hatred, some with fear, most with indifference. To them, you are not a man at all, but a function, a warning, a piece of living history best kept at arm's length. You are the town's necessary sin, and the crowd is here to see you do what must be done. And so you wait, as you always do, at the edge of the world, on a stage no one envies, for the moment when the city will remember you, if only for an hour. It happens in stages, always the same stages, as if the city's sense of justice is a great, creaking machine that only you know how to operate. The crowd grows thick and tense. The morning air sharpens. A silence spreads, a strange, respectful hush as the condemned is led through the narrow corridor formed by the city guard. You watch them come. Today it is a young man, no older than 20, barefoot, wrists bound before him. A tunic that once might have been white, but now is gray with dirt and the shame of arrest. His head is down, eyes on the stones. The guards march in a practiced line, their faces stiff with indifference, or perhaps something like relief. It is not their job to feel anything, not today. The crowd ripples, parting to let the procession pass. You see faces you recognize. The old baker with his crooked teeth, the widow who always crosses herself when you pass, the cobbler who overcharges you for boots that never fit. They watch the condemned, but they watch you too, as if hoping to catch a flicker of doubt, a sign that you are not so different from the boy whose life will end by your hand. You meet the condemned at the foot of the scaffold. Up close, he smells of sweat and fear, and faintly, onions. He looks up just once, and you see it in his eyes, the moment when he recognizes you as a person and not just a function. The moment never lasts. You gesture to the steps. The guards prod him, but gently, as if afraid that cruelty might bring down a curse on them. There is always that superstition, even among men, who would beat a thief half to death in an alley. You climb first, setting your feet with care on each worn plank, checking the weight as you go. The platform creaks but holds. You hear the crowd hush, feel the eyes on your back. The condemned follows, stumbling once, the rope chafing his wrists. The priest is waiting at the top, his lips already moving in prayer, his face pale beneath his hood. There is a rhythm to what happens next, as if all of you are actors in a play that the town itself has written and rehearsed for generations. The guards take their places at the corners. Willem stands to the side, arms folded, watching everything with a frown carved deep into his brow. The priest recites the words mercy, forgiveness, salvation. The condemned mumbles a response, his voice too low to carry. You cannot remember the last time someone wept. You step forward, axe in hand, rope in the other. You meet the boy's eyes one last time. Sometimes you see defiance, sometimes terror, sometimes nothing at all. Today you see confusion, as if he still cannot believe this is happening. You gesture for him to kneel. He obeys. The rope goes around his neck, the knot settled at the angle you have learned through years of practice. A badly tied knot means suffering, and suffering means chaos. You do not allow chaos, not on your scaffold. The boy shivers. The priest crosses himself, and you step back, waiting for the final nod from Willem. It comes. The signal is always the same, a single small movement, the kind a man might make to shoo away a fly. It is enough. You pull the lever. The trapdoor drops. For a moment, everything is still. The rope tightens. The boy's body jerks, then hangs limp. The crowd exhales as one, the collective breath of a town reminding itself that justice is not some far off thing, but a ritual enacted with blood and wood and the hands of a man everyone despises. You watch for the signs you know too well, the twitching feet, the eyes rolling back, the long, slow slackening of limbs. It is never clean, not really. But today it is quick. You are grateful for that, in the same way you are grateful when rain falls after a long drought. Grateful, but not happy. You do not remember the last time you were happy. The guards move first, stepping forward to keep the crowd from pressing too close. Some people strain for a better look. Others turn away, faces pale, mouths set in grim lines. You catch the eyes of a boy in the front row, his face blank. He will talk about this for weeks. Perhaps, in a year, he will throw stones at your window, daring you to come out. The priest kneels and mumbles another prayer, this one for the soul already gone. You wait, hands folded, axe at your side, as the ritual concludes. When the priest rises, you and the guards lower the body gently, always gently, as if kindness at this stage could erase what has happened. The crowd murmurs. Some drift away, already bored, eager for a market stall or a mug of beer. A few linger, hoping for a second act. There is always a handful who would watch you all day if only the law allowed it. You wipe your brow, feeling the sweat and the grime and the knowledge that your day has only just begun. The square feels emptier somehow, as if the act itself has taken something from the air. The sun is higher, brighter, indifferent. You move to the edge of the scaffold and look out over the town. For a moment, you let yourself imagine what it would be like to be invisible again, to walk among these people as just another face in the crowd. Then you remember that time is gone. You are the executioner, and this is your stage. You gather your tools, check the rope, sweep the boards. There will be another execution soon, and another after that. You must be ready. The show must always go on. There is a strange quietness that falls after the deed is done, a hush thick as wool. The crowd, so loud before, recedes in both voice and number. Some people drift away, their curiosity sated, carrying baskets and gossip in equal measure. Others linger at the fringes of the square, reluctant to return to the mundane, reluctant perhaps to face their own part in the spectacle. There is always a residue of energy, a faint charge in the air, as if something important has happened, and yet nothing at all has changed. You remain on the scaffold, tools in hand, a man left behind to tidy up the evidence of justice. The city guard has already stepped back, forming a loose ring around the platform. Their duty, in their eyes, is finished. None of them volunteers to help you with what comes next. You move first to the body. There is a ritual to this, too, a ritual with no audience, performed for necessity rather than ceremony. You untie the rope from the boy's neck, feeling the slight warmth that still lingers in the flesh. Your hands are practiced, careful not to seem too gentle or too cruel. The priest stands nearby, his lips moving in silent prayer, his eyes closed as if the mere act of watching might stain him forever. You lay the body on a rough blanket, one that you keep for this purpose alone. There are always stains you cannot remove, no matter how hard you scrub. The city will not pay for a new one. The city will not even ask where the old ones go once they have grown too stiff or dark to be used again. Some you burn, some you bury with the bodies. Most you simply wash and use again. A cart waits at the edge of the square, your cart, though it is never referred to as such. It is a rickety thing, its wheels always threatening to collapse, its boards pockmarked with old blood and filth. You drag it closer, ignoring the glances from the guards. The townspeople watch too, but from a safe distance. Death is fascinating, but its aftertaste is bitter. With practiced care, you lift the body and place it in the cart. The priest finally opens his eyes and murmurs a blessing. You have learned not to listen too closely. The words are always the same, and none of them are meant for you. If the family of the condemned is present, You keep your eyes down, your face expressionless. Sometimes they scream, sometimes they cry, sometimes they just stare, hollow eyed and silent. Today, there is no one. You cover the body with the blanket, tucking it in as if preparing a child for sleep. There is something in this gesture that feels both necessary and futile. The city wants to believe in dignity, even here. You offer them what scraps you can. Next comes the blood. There is always blood. On the platform, on the rope, sometimes on your own hands. You take the bucket and rag, both of them nearly as old as the scaffold itself, and begin to scrub. The work is slow, methodical. The stains are stubborn, ground deep into the grain. The smell is familiar, a mix of iron, old wood, and something else, something sour and ancient. It fills your nose, coats your tongue, seeps into your skin. You try not to think about how many times you have done this. You try not to think at all. Children creep closer now, emboldened by the end of the spectacle. They throw small stones at your back or at the platform itself. Once in a while, one shouts an insult, quick and sharp, then flees before you can turn around. The city guard does nothing to stop them. This is as much a part of the ritual as any prayer. You work until the worst of the blood is gone, then scatter fresh sand over the wood. The city will want the scaffold to look clean by afternoon, as if nothing ever happened here, as if, by sweeping the blood away, the crime itself might be forgiven. The guards begin to disperse, melting into the crowd or returning to their posts. Captain Willem lingers for a moment, watching you. His face is closed, unreadable. You wonder if he sees you as a man or only as a function, a gear in the great grinding engine of order. He says nothing, only nods once before turning away. The priest leaves last, robes flapping, head bowed. You watch him go, feeling an odd mixture of envy and relief. His role is over for today. Yours is not. You gather your tools, the axe, the rope, the rags, each one heavier than it was this morning. You check the platform one last time, eyes scanning for splinters or mist stains. Everything must be in order. You have learned that people will forgive almost anything, so long as it is tidy. When the square is nearly empty, you set off with your cart. The body will go to the potter's field at the edge of town, a strip of land reserved for those who die without family, without money, or, sometimes, without hope. The road there is rough, pitted with stones and mud. The cart wobbles and creaks, and you push it in silence, the only sound the steady crunch of wheels and your own tired breathing. On the way, you pass the baker, the cobbler, the woman with the spinning wheel. They do not greet you, they turn away, suddenly absorbed in their work. You are the invisible man again, unseen until you are needed. It is a relief in its own small way. At the potter's field, You dig the grave yourself. There are no mourners, no headstones, no prayers, just earth and silence and the work of your hands. You lower the body, say nothing, and fill the hole. When it is done, you stand for a moment, shovel in hand, looking at the mound. You do not remember their names. You do not try. You return to the square as the sun climbs higher. By now, life has resumed its normal rhythm. Merchants call out, children play, the crowd has dispersed. Only the scaffold remains, and you beside it, waiting for whatever comes next. You know it will not be long. When your work on the scaffold is finally done and the square has emptied, you find yourself alone, almost. The priest lingers, as he always does after an execution, neither hurrying away nor approaching you directly. He stands beneath the crooked shadow of the bell tower, fiddling with his prayer beads, his lips moving in silent recitation or perhaps silent debate with his own soul. His robes catch the wind and flutter like the wings of a frightened bird. You have come to recognize this ritual too. The moment after, when the city returns to normal, but the stain of death still hangs in the air, visible only to those who played a part. The priest's presence is both duty and burden. He is a shepherd for souls, but also a custodian for guilt. Sometimes you wonder which weighs heavier for him. You wipe your hands on your apron, the fabric stiff and dark with old stains. You consider leaving, slipping away to your house, your cart, your crow. But this is one part of the day that cannot be avoided. The priest will seek you out eventually, and it is better to face him here in the open, beneath the indifferent gaze of the city's old stone saints. He approaches at last, his steps careful, not hurried, but with a purpose you know too well. His eyes do not quite meet yours. They never do. Perhaps he is afraid of what he might see reflected there, or perhaps he fears you will see too much in his. Executioner, he says, using the only name he has for you. You nod, saying nothing, waiting for the words you both know are coming. He crosses himself, then you, out of habit more than faith. He begins, as always, with a prayer for mercy, for justice, for the soul of the departed. The words are smooth, practiced, worn down by repetition until they mean nothing at all. You listen, head bowed, hands folded. You have heard every variation of these prayers for thieves, for murderers, for heretics and beggars. The cadence never changes, nor the gentle plea at the end, as if a few extra syllables might tip the scales of heaven in your favor. You doubt it. If salvation could be bought with words, your own soul would have been clean long ago. When the prayer is finished, the priest hesitates. This is the part where he offers you comfort, a word, a gesture, sometimes a piece of bread, or a swallow of wine if the day has been especially grim. Today, he offers only words. It is never easy, he says, voice low, so the saints and the pigeons cannot hear, but it must be done. You know that as well as I. You do not answer. There is nothing to say that will make it easier for either of you. He searches your face for a crack in your composure, a hint of regret or longing. You give him nothing. You have learned that mercy is a dangerous thing for both of you. The priest sighs. He is not a cruel man, only tired. You remember years ago when he first came to the city, how eager he was to save every soul, how he prayed with a voice that rang clear and true. The years have worn him down as they have worn you until the line between duty and despair has blurred beyond recognition. He asks if you will pray with him for the next condemned. It is a strange question, almost a kindness, as if by sharing the prayer you might share the burden. You agree, out of habit more than hope. Together you stand, side by side on the empty square, heads bowed, reciting words that have lost their meaning but not their necessity. Afterward, he reaches into his robe and pulls out a small loaf of bread wrapped in cloth. He offers it to you, an act of charity, perhaps, or a ritual of absolution. You take it, feeling the warmth through the rough cloth, the soft give of real bread. It will feed you and your family tonight, though no one will ever thank him for it. You think, as you always do, that the priest carries his own kind of stain. His hands do not bear blood, but his soul is not clean. You see the way he flinches when a child cries during a service, the way his eyes linger on the faces of the condemned. You wonder if he confesses, and to whom. The priest prepares to leave, gathering his robes, gathering himself. He looks at you one last time, as if to say something more, but thinks better of it. He offers a final blessing, quick and quiet, and turns away, his shadow stretching long across the empty stones. You remain for a moment, bread in hand, watching him go. The city resumes its business around you. Voices rise, carts rattle, the smell of fresh bread and manure mingles in the air. You are alone again, the only constant in a place that does its best to forget what you have done for it. You tuck the loaf into your sack and begin the slow walk home. You know that tomorrow, or perhaps even later today, the priest will return. There will always be another name, another crime, another sentence to carry out. And each time he will offer a prayer, a piece of bread, a word of comfort that neither of you truly believes. But for now, the meeting is done. The day moves on. The stain lingers for both of you, whether the city chooses to see it or not. You walk home in the wake of everything, of prayers half heartedly uttered, of blood already drying on your hands, of the city's collective sigh of relief that justice has been performed and life can go on, at least until the next time. The square is behind you now, its noise receding, the scaffold a silhouette against the day's gray light. There is no applause, no ceremony. You simply step down, tools bundled under your arm, and disappear into streets that seem to narrow just for you. The walk home is not long, but it is full of distance. Distance from the square, from the memory of faces staring up at you, from the sound of a trap door falling shut. But the distance between you and everyone else is much longer, and it never gets shorter. The city itself shrinks away from your path. At every crossing, at every doorway, people move aside with a practiced ease that is part fear, part habit, and part plain superstition. No one greets you. No one meets your gaze. You try not to notice the way shutters close as you pass, the way laughter fades, how voices drop to a murmur. There is something oddly peaceful in the silence you leave behind, as if your very presence scours the air clean. You wonder, for a moment, if this is what it would be like to walk among ghosts. Or perhaps you are the ghost, haunting a city that still wishes it could pretend you are not necessary. You clutch the loaf of bread from the priest. It is warm, and for a moment it almost feels like a blessing. But you know better. Charity from the priest is not meant for you, not truly. It is meant for the idea of you, for the role you play. When you eat it, you taste both gratitude and shame, and neither is nourishing. The road home takes you past houses with thatched roofs and muddy courtyards, chickens pecking in the dirt, dogs barking until their owners shush them. Children peer out from behind doorways, some curious, most afraid. You catch a few eyes lingering, but when you look back, they vanish like smoke. You think of other days when you were younger, when this road felt wider, when you imagined yourself as anything other than what you have become. You try to remember what you used to dream about. The memory slips away, just out of reach, like so many things. You pass the tavern, its signs swinging in the breeze, the warm smell of ale and stew drifting out onto the street. You will not go inside. Even if you did, you know what would happen. The laughter would stop, the stools at the bar would suddenly be full, and the innkeeper would find some urgent task at the far end of the room. You remember the last time you tried, months ago, on a day when the loneliness was too much to bear. The room emptied as if by magic, and the innkeeper's wife refused to take your coin. Since then, you walk past, head down, pretending not to notice the way the windows fill with watching faces. At the well, a pair of women draw water, their hands red and chapped from the cold. You nod, out of habit. They turn their backs, buckets swinging, skirts brushing the ground, their voices rising in a low hiss. You do not bother to listen. Whatever they say cannot hurt more than what you already know. Your house is at the far end of the lane, smaller than most, its door sagging, its roof patched with whatever you could find: old boards, scraps of canvas, bundles of reeds. No one has painted it in years. It is the last house in the village, the place where the road stops. No one visits unless they have to. You pause at the threshold. The door creaks when you push it open. The familiar darkness greets you, heavy with the smell of smoke and damp earth. A patch of weak light slants across the floor. The one-eyed crow sits atop the mantel, feathers ruffled, head cocked. He croaks once, as if to announce your arrival to the empty house. Inside, the world is quieter, but not more peaceful. You set down your tools, lean the axe against the wall, the rope coiled neatly beside it. You brush the dust from your coat, wipe your hands again, though the stains will never fully come out. In the gloom, you can almost pretend you are someone else, a tradesman, a farmer, a father coming home to supper and laughter. But the house is silent, save for the crow and the slow drip of water from a leak in the ceiling. You stoke the fire, coaxing a little warmth from the embers, and take a seat by the hearth. The bread from the priest lies on the table, along with a wedge of old cheese, a knife dulled by years of use, and the last of yesterday's broth. This is your feast. You eat slowly, savoring each mouthful as if the ritual itself might bring you comfort. Outside, the city moves on, life spinning out in circles you can only observe from the margins. You listen to the distant sounds, a cart rattling over stones, a dog barking, a baby's thin wail. None of it has anything to do with you. When you finish your meal, you clean your plate, sweep the hearth, and check the latch on the door. These small chores give shape to your evening, a sense of order where none exists elsewhere. You feed a scrap of bread to the crow, who takes it from your hand, his eyes bright in the firelight. Night comes early. You sit in the gathering gloom, watching shadows flicker on the walls, listening to the city's heartbeat slow. You are home, if such a word can still mean anything, in the only place that will have you. And somewhere, beyond the silence and the dark, you know that tomorrow and the day after and all the days that follow will bring the same walk, the same eyes, the same silence. There are no grand reunions in your house at the end of the day. The door opens, and what passes for family life in the executioner's home resumes, quiet, measured, burdened by things unspoken. You share this space with your wife and children, though sometimes you wonder if sharing is the right word for it. It is more a cohabitation, a circling around each other in a house always too small for the weight it carries. Your wife is at the hearth, kneeling, wrestling with a stubborn pot suspended over the coals. Her hands are red and raw, her hair bound tightly in a scarf to keep it out of her face and away from the smoke. She does not look up when you enter. There is no smile, no word of welcome, just a grunt of acknowledgement, as if you are one more unpleasant fact of daily life, like the draft beneath the door or the mildew in the corners. She does not ask about your day. She knows better than anyone what your day has been. She was not born into this life. Once she was the daughter of a miller, with brothers who teased, and a mother who hummed while she worked. You try to remember when her face last held any softness. It was before your first execution, you think, before your name was ever whispered in the village, with that particular hush. The children are upstairs, or what passes for upstairs, a cramped loft beneath a sagging roof, reached by a ladder that creaks with every footfall. Their voices drift down, hushed and wary. They are old enough now to know what you do, old enough to understand why the other children throw stones or run from them in the lane. At night, when you think they sleep, you hear them whispering questions, stories, fears passed from one to the other like crumbs beneath the table. You set your tools aside, careful not to make too much noise. The axe, the rope, the leather apron, each one placed just so, as if neatness might hold back the tide of what seeps in from outside. You wash your hands at the basin, the water cold and cloudy, and scrub at the stains that never truly leave your skin. Supper is served in silence. The stew is thin, more water than meat, with limp cabbage and two potatoes sliced so thin you could read by them. Your wife ladles it into bowls, sets them on the table, and sits without a word. The children come down, heads lowered, eyes flicking from your face to their mothers and back again. They eat quickly, not from hunger, but from habit, a race to finish before the quiet turns into something heavier. After the meal, your wife takes up her mending. She works by the window, catching the last of the light, her needle flashing in and out of worn fabric. She mends everything: trousers, shirts, socks, the sack you use to carry your tools. There is always something that needs patching in this house. You watch her hands move, swift and sure, and think about all the things she cannot fix. You try to speak, to ask about her day, about the children, about anything but the work that follows you like a shadow. She answers in short phrases, her eyes on her stitching. Sometimes she pauses, as if searching for the words she has lost over the years. You sense in her a patience that is not the same as love, a kind of resignation that settles over everything in this house. The children finish eating and scurry back upstairs. You hear them settle in the loft, their movements muffled by straw and old blankets. They talk in whispers, their voices a comfort and a pain at once. You know they are lonely. You know they are angry. At the town, at the other children, at you. You wish you could tell them it will get better, but you are not a man given to lies, not even for your own blood. Your wife sighs, setting her mending aside. The roof is leaking again, she says at last, not looking up. There is mold in the corner by the stove. The landlord will not fix it. He says we should be grateful for a roof at all. You nod, running a hand through your hair. The house is falling apart around you, slowly and relentlessly, as if the world itself conspires to drive you out. Repairs are made with whatever you can scavenge: patches of wood from broken barrels, scraps of canvas from old sacks, handfuls of straw stolen from the market after nightfall. Nothing lasts for long. You discuss what little money is left, how far it might stretch: bread, salt, a new shirt for the youngest before winter comes. Every coin you bring home is heavy with the cost it took to earn. You do not say this aloud. There is no need. You offer to climb onto the roof in the morning to stuff the worst leaks with moss and rags. Your wife shrugs as if to say it will not help, but she does not argue. You sit together in the failing light, each lost in your own thoughts. The silence broken only by the crow's harsh cry outside and the wind rattling the shutters. Before bed, you check the door, the windows, the loose board by the stove. You move through the house quietly, not wanting to wake the children. Your wife sets the kettle over the coals and pours 2 mugs, thick with weak tea. You drink in silence, sharing warmth if not words. Later, lying on the hard mattress with the blanket pulled up to your chin, you listen to the small sounds of the house settling, the drip in the corner, the wind in the eaves, the quiet breathing of your wife beside you. You're both awake, but neither of you speaks. This is your family. This is what is left when the city is done with you for the day. A roof patched with hope, a table set with silence, and the knowledge that, no matter how many years pass, you will always be the executioner's wife, the executioner's children, the sculpt executioner. No one else will let you forget it, not even each other. The day seeps away slowly, as if even the sun is reluctant to cross the sky above your roof. Evening in your house arrives not with warmth or comfort, but with the certainty of another night spent as a family joined more by duty than by love. There are no stories, no laughter. Instead, there is the gradual settling into silence, a silence that grows thicker with each passing hour, a silence that you wear like an old coat. You sit by the hearth, its light faint, coals glowing softly beneath a blanket of ash. The crow perches nearby, picking at a crust of bread you saved from supper. Its black eyes glint in the flickering firelight, sharp and watchful, as if it knows secrets about you that you have long since forgotten. Sometimes you talk to the bird, not because you expect an answer, but because it is the only creature in your life that does not look away. Your wife mends in the half light, her hands moving automatically. The children are quiet above you, their whispers replaced by the sound of breathing and the creak of boards as they shift in their sleep. Sometimes you imagine what it must be like in other houses at this hour, stories told in gentle voices, hands held in the dark, children drifting into dreams untroubled by what their father does for a living. You wonder if your children dream at all, or if they lie awake and listen, as you do, to the wind and the endless drip of water from the leaking roof. You take your mug, barely tea, really, more like hot water colored by yesterday's leaves, and stare into its depths. The bitterness is comforting. It is honest, unadorned, like everything in your life. You sip it slowly, feeling the heat on your tongue, and think of nothing in particular. Some nights you try to remember other lives, lives you might have had, trades you might have learned, paths you might have taken if you had not been the one left standing when the city needed an executioner. These thoughts are useless, but they come anyway, drifting through your mind like smoke. From outside, a burst of laughter rises in the night. It comes from the tavern, 2 streets away, where men gather to drink and talk and forget, for a while, the hardness of the world. You envy them their simple pleasures, their forgetfulness. You know you could join them if you wished, could sit in the corner with a cup of sour ale, listening to their stories. But you have learned what happens next. The slow ebb of conversation, the glances over shoulders, the way the room empties one table at a time until only you remain, more shadow than man. Sometimes, when the melancholy is thickest, you find yourself thinking about those you have executed, not their names. They blur together, a parade of faces and crimes and last words, but their eyes remain, staring back at you in the dark, accusing or pleading, or simply empty. You tell yourself you are only doing your job, that it is the city's will, not yours. Still, the faces linger, joining you at the table, sharing your thin tea and silent supper. Your wife speaks at last, her voice low and tired. You could leave, you know. We could go to another village, start over. It is not the first time she has said it, and you know it will not be the last. You both know it is impossible. There are no villages far enough away, no names you could take that would not become stained the same as this one. The world is small for men like you, smaller still for your wife and children. You shake your head, the movement heavy with all the things you cannot say. She nods, accepting, her hands never pausing in their work. The silence resumes, even heavier than before. The night deepens, the fire burns low, the crow settles into a ball of feathers. The children's breathing evens out above you. You sit for a while longer, staring at the embers, watching the patterns they make, red, orange, a sudden flare of white. You find a kind of comfort in their fading light, a reminder that even the hardest days must end. Before bed, you check the door one last time, making sure the latch is firm, that the cracks are stuffed with rags to keep out the worst of the wind. The city is never more distant than it is at this hour, when you are alone with your thoughts and your regrets. You wonder if, in the quiet houses, the other men and women of the city ever think about you at all. You doubt it. You are the shadow at the edge of their lives, necessary but never welcome. You lie awake beside your wife, listening to the soft sounds of your family in the dark. You try to remember the last time you felt hope, the last time you believed that things might change. The memory will not come. You let the darkness close over you, heavy and slow, carrying you into a sleep that is never quite deep enough to be rest. And so the evening passes, like all the others before it, wrapped in melancholy, held together by silence and the knowledge that tomorrow will bring another day, another sentence, another shadow on your soul. The night is heavy, thick with silence. The house has settled into uneasy rest. Your wife beside you, your children above, the crow a dark silhouette on the mantel. For once, you are on the edge of sleep, drifting in and out, not quite dreaming, not quite awake. Outside, the wind rattles the shutters and carries the distant sounds of the town's late revelers home. You are used to these noises. They are the sounds of life continuing, just out of reach. Then comes the knock. It is not loud, not hurried, but insistent. 3 times, a pause, then 3 more. You sit up, the blankets rough beneath your hands, and listen, hoping you imagined it. But there it is again, a little harder now, not to be denied. Your wife stirs, her eyes opening in the darkness, mouth already forming a question. You press a finger to your lips. The children do not wake. Their breathing is unchanged, or perhaps they are only pretending to sleep, as children do when trouble stalks the house. You rise and pull on your coat, careful to make no sound. You take the small knife from the table just in case, old habit, not out of courage, but out of a weary sense of preparedness. At the door, you hesitate. No one visits you at night unless they are desperate or dangerous. Often, it is both. You unlatch the door and open it a crack. A man stands in the gloom, shadowed, face half hidden beneath the hood of a traveling cloak. He glances left and right, scanning the lane, then fixes you with a look, nervous, pleading, determined all at once. Executioner, he whispers, and you hear the fear in his voice. I need to speak with you, alone. You step outside, closing the door behind you, feeling the eyes of your wife and your children. Yes, you are sure now they are awake, following your every move from the darkness. The street is empty, the only light a pale wash of moon filtered through low, drifting clouds. The air smells of smoke and wet earth. The man wrings his hands. He is not from here. You can tell by the way he stands, as if uncertain whether the mud will let him leave. His boots are too new, his cloak too fine for someone visiting an executioner in the night. My name is not important, he says, confirming what you already guessed. I am here about a matter of justice, or perhaps revenge. He pulls something from his pocket, a purse, the leather soft and well oiled, the drawstring bright with embroidery. He holds it out, but you do not take it. You have learned long ago that the price of your work is never paid in coin alone. He speaks quickly, his voice low and urgent. There is a man, a neighbor, who has wronged me, stolen from my house, spread lies, ruined my family's name. I want him punished. I want him to know fear. The man's hands shake. You have the power. The city listens to you. You stare at him, blank and silent. He has come all this way, risked the dark and the shame, because he believes you are not just an arm of the law, but a law unto yourself. You almost laugh, but the sound would be crueler than any refusal. You shake your head. That is not how it works, you say. I do not choose. I carry out the sentences. It is the city's will, not mine. The man's face twists. Disbelief, anger, something like shame. But you must know things. There are ways. I am willing to pay. He tries again to press the purse into your hand, but you refuse. If there is a crime, bring it to the magistrate. If there is evidence, the city will judge. My hands are not for hire. You hear the words echo, hollow, as if you are reciting a line learned by heart rather than a truth you still believe. The man's shoulders sag. For a moment, you see the child he once was, hoping that justice could be bought or bent to fit a broken heart. He looks over your shoulder toward your house, toward the dim glow of the dying hearth. I am sorry, he says at last. I thought, you do not let him finish. You step back, close the door, lock it with hands that tremble more than you would like. Through the cracks in the wood, you hear his footsteps fade, swallowed by the night. You lean against the door, feeling the weight of another's disappointment settle atop your own. Your wife is waiting in the shadows, face pale in the half light. She says nothing, but you see the question in her eyes. Was it danger? Was it shame? Was it just another reminder that the world expects you to be as corrupt as it is afraid? You shake your head, sit at the table, and let the silence return. The crow ruffles its feathers and blinks at you, a witness to secrets best left unspoken. Upstairs, the children are very still. You wonder, not for the first time, how many nights you have left before someone more desperate, more determined, comes knocking, not with coins and pleas, but with threats and knives. You wonder what justice really is, and if you have ever been its instrument, or only its excuse. Eventually, your wife returns to bed. You sit by the cold hearth, listening to the wind and the far off calls of night birds, letting the darkness settle around you like a shroud. When at last you climb the ladder to your pallet, the house is silent again. But the silence is different, thicker, tighter, stretched over the shape of fear and disappointment. You lie awake until the darkness gives way to the gray promise of another day, knowing that nothing has changed and everything has changed. You are still the executioner, and the city, with all its hunger for justice and revenge, will always find its way to your door. Dawn comes grudgingly, as if the world itself is tired of this place and these people. You lie awake in the pale, sickly light, staring at the low beams of your ceiling. Sleep has not visited you, or if it has left no trace. Your mind circles around the night's visitor, his desperate whisper, the purse you did not take. In the quiet, every thought echoes. You rise before the others. Your wife feigns sleep, or perhaps she is lost in her own troubled dreams. The children are bundles of shadow on the loft, faces hidden beneath thin blankets. Even the crow is silent, its head tucked beneath its wing. For a few moments, the world is yours alone, yours and the memory of what justice is supposed to be. You make tea from stale leaves, water boiled over the smallest of fires. You drink it standing by the window, staring out into the lane. The city wakes slowly, the first carts rumbling over the stones, women with baskets heading to market, the distant clang of the blacksmith's hammer. You wonder, as you have 1,000 times before, if they believe in justice or only in the spectacle of it, the neatness of a hanging, the finality of an axe, the false comfort of seeing punishment delivered by someone else's hand. You think of the man from the night before, his cloak too fine for this place, his voice trembling with urgency. He wanted justice, or so he said. But what did he mean? Justice to him was vengeance, a private reckoning paid for with gold. For the magistrate, justice is paperwork and precedent, a careful balancing of crime and punishment. For the crowd, justice is entertainment, a story to tell at supper, a lesson for their children about what happens to those who step out of line. And for you, what is justice for the one who wields the rope and axe? You turn the word over in your mind, feeling its weight, its emptiness. You know that what you do is not justice, not truly. Justice is an idea, a story people tell themselves to sleep better at night. What you offer is order, the reassurance that the machinery still works, that someone pays for every wrong, whether or not that someone deserves it. You remember your first execution, your hands shaking, your mouth dry as dust. The condemned was a man not much older than you, a thief who had stolen bread to feed his family. You looked into his eyes and saw, for the first time, the distance between justice and law. Afterward, the city fathers clapped you on the shoulder, told you you had done your duty. The baker's wife sent you a loaf of bread, stale and crumbly, as if it were a prize. That night you lay awake, listening to your heart beat in the darkness, wondering if it would ever slow again. You know now that it never does. Each time, it is the same. The ritual, the waiting, the crowd's hungry eyes, the priest's empty prayers, and always the condemned who begins as a story becomes a body and then a memory that will fade quicker than you ever will. You wonder what would happen if you simply refused. Would the city crumble? Would someone else step forward, desperate enough to take your place? You finish your tea and rinse the cup in the basin, scrubbing at a chip in the rim. You think about the stories you've heard, old men at the market, their voices low as they talk of justice. An eye for an eye, they say, as if the world could ever be balanced that way. You have seen too many eyes taken, too many debts that do not even the scales. In the end, what remains is not justice, but a kind of weary truce. The city tolerates you so long as you keep its darkness orderly and out of sight. You dress for the day. The axe needs sharpening. The rope must be checked. You do it all with the same care as before, not because you believe in justice, but because you believe in the importance of small mercies. A sharp axe means a quicker end. A well tied knot means less suffering. These are the only kinds of justice left to you. You think of your children, how they will grow up in the shadow of your work, always just outside the circle of belonging. You wonder if they will come to believe in justice, or if they will learn, as you have, that the world is neither fair nor kind, only relentless. You step outside, letting the cold air clear your thoughts. The city does not pause for you. A woman crosses herself as you pass. A boy throws a pebble at your feet and runs. You nod to the city guard, who looks through you, seeing not a man, but a tool. At the edge of the square, you pause, staring at the scaffold, the marks in the wood, the stains that never quite come out. You wonder if, in some future you will not live to see, people will talk about justice and remember your name, or if you will simply vanish, as all executioners must, into the silence between sentences. For now, you do what must be done, not for justice, not for glory, but because it is your place in this great, grinding story. You are the executioner. You are the final word in a language no one wants to speak aloud. And every day you weigh what justice is and find it wanting. Some evenings, when the city's eyes have turned elsewhere and the house is quieter than usual, you slip out for a walk. You tell your wife you need air, but both of you know where you are going. It is not an errand or a chore, though you have learned to move with the brisk purpose of someone with important business. You go to the cemetery, the only place in the city where no one troubles you, no one asks questions, and no one expects you to be anything but silent. The path there is not long, but it feels like the edge of the world. You skirt the market, now deserted, the stalls shuttered and empty, the air heavy with the scent of rotting vegetables and spilled ale. The alleys are damp, full of echoes, every footstep magnified by the stones and the hush that follows your passing. Sometimes a dog barks, but it quickly falls silent. Even the animals sense that your company is not the kind that brings good fortune. At the edge of the city, you leave the cobblestones for the rutted dirt road that leads up the hill. The grass here grows wild, unruly, patched with nettles and thistles. Graves mark the landscape, some marked with stones or wooden crosses, others unmarked, just a mound of earth settling under the weight of time. The cemetery is larger than anyone likes to admit. Each year, the city pretends not to notice as it creeps further up the hill, swallowing more ground. You come here because it is the only place where the dead do not care what you are. The living may avert their eyes, spit in your direction, or cross themselves when you pass, but the dead are indifferent. Here, you are neither executioner nor outcast. You are simply another shadow among many. You walk between the rows, boots sinking into soft earth, reading names on the stones when you can. There are more graves without names than with them: paupers, travelers, criminals, those whose families could not or would not pay for proper burial. Some of these graves are your work. You remember each one, not by the names the city gave them, but by the final moments: the woman who sang before the trapdoor fell, the man who cursed your mother, the boy who tried to run. You pause at a fresh mound, the soil still loose, a rough wooden cross at its head. There is no inscription, just a smear of red paint, a mark of shame or warning, you do not know which. You kneel and pick at the earth, letting it crumble between your fingers. The silence here is different than the silence in your house. It is older, thicker, weighted by secrets too heavy to speak aloud. The crow sometimes follows you, its wings beating softly in the dusk. It perches on a stone and cocks its head as if waiting for you to speak. Some nights you do. You tell it things you cannot tell your wife or children: about the weight of your hands, about the faces that come to you in dreams, about the fear that one day the city will tire of you and send someone else to finish your story. You wander further to the part of the cemetery where the weeds are tallest, where the oldest stones lean at strange angles. Here, the names have faded, the dates lost to moss and rain. You imagine a future in which your own grave is here, unmarked and forgotten, the earth swallowing all memory of who you were and what you did. The thought is not frightening, it is almost a comfort. Sometimes, as dusk falls and the city lights begin to flicker below, you see another figure among the graves. An old woman, bent nearly double, her hair wild, her clothes a patchwork of rags and memories. The townsfolk call her a witch, though you doubt she has any more magic than you do. She tends to the graves, leaving bundles of herbs, muttering words you cannot quite catch. Tonight, she nods at you, not in greeting, but in acknowledgement. Two ghosts sharing the same ground. "It is quiet here," she says, her voice rasping like dead leaves. "No one asks questions. No one cares who you were." You nod, grateful for her company, or perhaps just her understanding. She moves on, her figure swallowed by the gloom. You stand alone for a while longer, listening to the wind and the creak of branches. You think about justice again, about the gap between what you do and what it means. The city claims its peace through your hands, but peace is not the same as justice. You wonder if anyone ever finds what they are looking for in the end: a sense of balance, a moment of rest. The graves say nothing. Night gathers around you. The city is a dim blur in the valley, lights winking out one by one. The air is cold and sharp. You pull your cloak tighter and begin the walk back, feeling lighter for having spoken, even if no one truly heard. You return home as the first stars appear, the crow flapping ahead of you. The house is dark, your family asleep, the silence inside a familiar companion. You slip into bed beside your wife, who stirs but does not wake. You listen to her breathing, to the small, comforting noises of your children overhead. You have found a kind of peace, if only for an evening, in the company of the dead. Tomorrow, the living will need you again. The memory of the old woman lingers with you longer than you expect. There is something about the way she moves among the graves, something in her voice, a rustle, a rasp, the indifference of someone who has seen too many seasons to care about the latest scandal or the most recent execution. She appears when the dusk is thickest, a shape half swallowed by the wild growth, her steps as silent as smoke. It is not the first time you have crossed paths with her in the cemetery, but tonight you find yourself drawn to her presence more than usual. After your walk among the graves, after the small peace that comes from being just another mourner in a field of forgotten names, you see her again. She stands beside a crooked stone, tying a bundle of herbs with a strip of faded linen, her hands deft despite the cold. She glances up as you approach. In the failing light, her eyes catch the last gleam of day, sharp and clear as glass. You again, she says, not unkindly. You walk among the dead more often than most. You shrug, unsure how much to confess. They are easier company than the living. She chuckles, a sound like a stick breaking underfoot. You say that as if you do not belong to them yourself. You have not yet grown roots here. Her gaze flickers to your hands, your shoulders, the heaviness in the way you stand. Still, you walk heavy, as if the earth wants to claim you. You are not sure how to respond. Conversation is a skill that has rusted in you, much like the axe you carry. Still, her presence is not accusing, not sharp with the judgment you hear in town. You relax a little, folding your arms against the chill. She ties another knot, tucks the herbs at the base of the stone, and straightens up with a grunt. You come for penance or forgiveness, or are you just running from the stink of your own house? There is a sly smile on her lips, but you sense no malice. Neither, you say. I come for quiet. No one follows me here. She nods, accepting your answer as truth. Good. This ground is for those who have no need of words, or those who have too many. She moves past you, and you follow without meaning to, her presence a comfort against the loneliness that settles around you like dew. She asks, do you remember them all? The ones you put in the ground? You hesitate, then nod. Most of them, not their names, faces, sometimes voices, always the way they looked at me just before. That is more than most care to remember. She stoops to adjust a stone that has tipped sideways, pressing it firmly into the earth. This city is full of people who remember only what suits them. They think the dead are gone and gone for good, but the dead have a way of lingering. You find yourself speaking more freely than you do with anyone else, even your wife. Do you think they forgive, or do they wait for someone to pay what was owed? She leans on her walking stick and considers. Some forgive, Most forget. A few hang on, gnawing at the world like a dog at a bone. But none of that is your burden, is it? You only carry the weight the city lays on your back. You almost laugh. It feels heavier every year. She eyes you sidelong, and yet you keep carrying it. A silence grows between you, not awkward, but companionable. The wind sighs through the weeds, and somewhere an owl calls. You think of the crowd in the square, of your family's silence at supper, of the way the city looks away from you, except when it needs something done. For a moment, it feels as though this strange old woman is the only other person in the world who truly sees you. She digs into a pouch at her belt and pulls out a small bundle wrapped in a scrap of cloth. Here, she says, it is only sage and yarrow, but it will keep nightmares at bay, or so the stories go. You look like a man who could use a quiet night's sleep. You take the bundle, surprised by the gesture. Thank you. She shrugs. Kindness is not forbidden, no matter what the city thinks. They call me witch for less. She grins, teeth crooked but strong. Do you believe in curses? You ask, voice low. She taps her stick against a stone. I believe in consequences. And I believe that the world spins whether we want it to or not. But a curse? She shakes her head. Most curses are just a name for the weight people cannot let go. You would know about that. The sun has almost gone now, the sky bruised and deepening. The cemetery is full of long shadows, the stones like teeth in the earth. She begins to walk away, her stride steady, leaving you with the bundle in your hand. Before she disappears into the gloom, she glances back over her shoulder. Do not let the living frighten you more than the dead, she calls. The dead cannot hurt you. The living, well, they are another matter. You nod, watching her shape blur and vanish among the graves. For a while, you stand alone, the weight of her words settling over you, not as a burden, but as an odd kind of comfort. You press the bundle of herbs to your nose. It smells sharp, clean, a little bitter, like the world after rain, or the truth told plain. You tuck it into your pocket, a small ward against the darkness waiting at the edge of every night. When you finally make your way home, the city is already asleep, the houses dark, the streets empty. You let yourself in quietly, careful not to wake your wife or children. The crow greets you with a soft croak from its perch. You place the herbs under your pillow and lie down, feeling the ache in your bones. And that night, for the first time in weeks, your dreams are quiet. The faces of the condemned do not visit. You sleep, not easily, but deeply. The city turns on, and outside your window, the old woman's words echo. Do not let the living frighten you more than the dead. You believe her. The peace of sleep is never guaranteed. Some nights you are granted a rare reprieve, deep, dreamless, as close to forgetting as a man like you can hope for. More often, however, your rest is shallow and haunted, troubled by things left undone or words left unsaid, by memories you cannot bury in any grave. Tonight is one of those nights. The bundle of herbs from the old woman rests beneath your pillow, their scent sharp and comforting, but even their promised magic cannot keep out every ghost. You wake several times, heart pounding, breath shallow, certain that someone is standing at the end of your bed. The house is silent, except for the steady breathing of your wife and the faint creak of the roof settling in the wind. You listen, every muscle tense, waiting for another knock, another plea, another accusation. But it is only the night, thick and suffocating, pressing against the walls of your home. You lie on your back, eyes open in the dark, staring at the shape of the ceiling. 1,000 sounds crowd in from outside, a dog barking in the distance, the whistle of wind through a crack in the window, the faint murmur of voices far off, laughter or anger, you cannot tell. You close your eyes and try to remember the comfort of the old woman's words, the way she moved among the graves as if the dead were old friends and not burdens. But the quiet she offered is gone now, and you are left with your own fears, small, persistent, as real as the scars on your hands. When sleep comes again, it is restless. You dream in fits and starts. The scaffold rises up before you, taller than the church tower, its wood slick with rain and blood. The crowd below is silent, every face turned up to watch, but you cannot make out a single feature. Their eyes are empty, black holes in white masks. The condemned walks toward you, no rope needed. He climbs the steps willingly, hands outstretched, his face shifting from stranger to friend to your own son. You try to speak, to warn him, but your voice is lost in the hush. He kneels, looking up at you with eyes too wide, too knowing. When you reach for the axe, it crumbles in your hands, the wood rotten, the blade dull. The crowd begins to laugh, low and growing, until it is all you can hear. The boy's head drops, and you feel the weight of every sentence you have ever carried out pressing down on your shoulders, crushing, inescapable. You wake with a start, sweat cold on your brow, the faint taste of iron in your mouth. Your wife turns beside you, her sleep unbroken, the lines on her face softened in the dark. For a moment you envy her, wonder if her dreams are gentler, or if she too is visited by shadows you have sent out into the world. You sit up, swing your feet to the floor, and listen to the house breathe around you. The crow stirs on the mantel, blinking in the gloom. You feed him a crust of bread, more for the comfort of movement than out of kindness. He takes it from your hand, eyes unblinking. Unable to rest, you wrap yourself in your old cloak and move quietly through the house, checking the latch on the door, the windows, the patch in the roof you stuffed with rags. Everything is in its place, but you are not soothed. You pour yourself a cup of water, drink it slowly, trying to calm the flutter in your chest. You think of the faces, the ones who cursed you, the ones who pleaded, the ones who said nothing at all. They visit you at night, asking questions you cannot answer. Was it worth it? Could you have done otherwise? Do you believe in forgiveness, in redemption, in anything at all? You remember the words of the old woman: do not let the living frighten you more than the dead. But it is the dead who come calling in the small hours, and you do not know how to send them away. As dawn approaches, the terrors recede, not vanquished, but merely waiting their turn. The world outside is silent, caught between night and morning. You lie back down, exhausted, unsure whether you slept at all. Your wife wakes, dresses in the gray light, and says nothing about the shadows under your eyes. Breakfast is a quiet ritual. The children come down, faces pale and tired, but you do not ask what dreams visited them. You eat together in silence, each of you carrying your own burdens. Some heavier, some unspoken, all equally real. When the sun finally rises, you go about your work as always. The tools must be checked, the scaffold swept, the rope inspected. The city expects order, expects you to be strong and steady, immune to fear or doubt. You play your part well, but inside, you are a maze of corridors, each one haunted by the echo of footsteps you can never quite outrun. The day begins again, and you wonder how many more nights you will endure before the terrors become just another part of the routine, another weight to carry, another silence to keep. You are the executioner. Sleep is a stranger, and dreams are never just dreams. The next morning comes not as a relief, but as a burden freshly laid upon your shoulders. It is always this way. No matter how rough the night, the world continues its cycle, indifferent to your sleeplessness, your unrest. Dawn does not so much break as seep, a pale, watery light leaking through the cracks in the walls and the threadbare curtain over the window. You lie there a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling the familiar ache in your bones, the gritty soreness behind your eyes. Another day, indistinguishable from the last. You rise as quietly as you can, careful not to disturb your wife, though you know she is awake. She lies still, back turned, her breathing slow and deliberate, clinging to a few more minutes of peace before the day's weight returns. The children are silent above, though you suspect at least one of them is listening, tracking your movements with the practiced caution of someone who has learned how to survive in a house full of unspoken things. You dress by habit, worn tunic, patched trousers, boots that never quite keep out the damp. You splash your face with cold water, hoping it will drive away the exhaustion clinging to your skin. It does not. The mirror on the wall is a piece of polished tin, too cloudy to reflect anything but a blur. Sometimes you are grateful for that. It spares you from counting the new lines on your face, from measuring how much older you have grown than your years. Breakfast is quiet. The fire struggles in the grate, the pot of porridge thin and unappetizing, the bread a little more stale than yesterday. Your wife ladles out the food, eyes fixed on her hands, and the children eat in silence. No one mentions the nightmares, the restless night, or the things that haunt you all. Words are rationed, as precious as coins, and often bring more trouble than comfort. Afterwards, you check your tools. The ritual is the same: axe, rope, leather apron. The movements soothe you, anchor you in the ordinary. You sharpen the blade, oil the hinges, knot and unknot the rope until the fibers are warm in your hands. This is the part of your life that you control, the small details that keep the chaos at bay. You step outside, greeted by the chill and the dull scent of wood smoke and earth. The lane is muddy, last night's rain pooling in deep ruts. Your boots are quickly caked with filth. You nod to a neighbor, a woman carrying a basket of washing, who flinches and hurries away, face averted. Children play at the far end of the street, their laughter suddenly dying when they see you. You watch them scatter, a silent admission that whatever else you are still feared. You make your way toward the square. The town is waking, shopkeepers lifting shutters, cartwheels creaking over cobblestones, the first calls of merchants hawking wares. The crowd does not gather for you today, but you feel their eyes all the same, flicking toward you, then away. A few men nod, stiff and awkward, unsure whether to treat you as part of the community or as a bad omen. You do not blame them. You do not greet them back. At the scaffold, you pause, surveying your workplace. The stains have faded, but never disappear. You sweep the boards, scattering sand over the worst spots. You check the hinges, the trap door, the knot. The priest passes by, robes brushing the ground, face pale and pinched. He gives you a quick nod and a mumbled greeting. You respond in kind, words like stones in your mouth. There is talk in the square, a thief caught during the night, a brawl near the market, rumors of another sentence to be handed down before week's end. You hear the whispers, the nervous anticipation of another spectacle, another day when the city gathers to watch you work. You feel the weight of their expectations, heavy as any axe. When your duties are done, you return home, passing by the shops and houses, the windows shuttered or faces quickly hidden. Your wife is in the yard, hanging laundry, her movements methodical and brisk. She does not look up. You help her, shaking out a blanket, pinning it to the line. For a moment, you are just another husband, another set of hands against the wind. Later, you mend the roof with moss and scraps, patch a leaking barrel, sweep the hearth. The crow hops down to the stoop, eyeing you with what almost passes for sympathy. You toss it a crust, and it takes flight, black wings catching the morning sun. The children leave for their chores, wary but dutiful. You watch them go, heartsick with all the things you cannot fix for them. They will grow up in this shadow, learn to keep their heads down, to survive without asking for more than the world will give. By midday, The city has moved on. The scaffold stands empty, the crowd's hunger postponed for another day. You feel both relief and dread, a temporary reprieve, nothing more. In the distance, you hear church bells, a cart rolling by, a dog barking at nothing. Life continues, indifferent, relentless. Inside, your wife stirs the pot for supper. The children return, quieter than when they left. You all eat together, the silence familiar, if not quite comfortable. Afterward, you sit by the hearth, the crow at your feet, watching the shadows grow longer. As evening falls, you prepare for another night, knowing the dreams will come, knowing the city will need you again. You find the bundle of herbs beneath your pillow, breathe in the scent, and close your eyes, willing yourself to rest. Another day gone, another just beginning. You are the executioner. In this city, every morning is a reminder that nothing truly changes, but you endure because you must. There is a peculiar sameness to your life now, a circling, repetitive rhythm, the kind that slowly grinds hope to dust. Morning follows night, night follows the day, and in between, you tend to your tools, your family, and the city's appetite for order. There is no ending, only the loop tightening, like a rope drawn knot by knot. This morning, the ritual is unchanged. You rise before the others, feeling every year, every sleepless night in your bones. The house is silent, the crow already awake, watching with one bright, expectant eye. You wash your face, dress in your threadbare clothes, gather your tools. Each action is deliberate, practiced, a defense against the creeping feeling that you are vanishing into your role, that what remains of you is only the part that works, the part that endures. Breakfast is silent. Your wife moves about the kitchen with the same measured resignation, never quite meeting your gaze. The children eat quickly and depart, clutching their bread and chores like armor against the world. The crow gets its share, snatching a crumb from your fingers, as familiar as family, as loyal as anyone left to you. You walk to the square. The city is waking. Shutters clatter open. The smell of baking bread mingles with smoke and sewage. Voices call out in the mist. You are a fixture here, a part of the landscape like the fountain or the church steeple, and people move around you as if you are only a shadow, never touching, never inviting, but always there. The scaffold awaits, indifferent and unchanged. You inspect it out of habit, running your hands over the wood, testing the rope, checking for the soft spots where the boards threaten to give way. Your mind drifts, faces, names, old prayers you have learned to say by rote. The city guard passes, nodding briskly, eyes sliding away before you can return the gesture. Willem is there too, his face drawn, the lines deepening with every year. You share a look, nothing more. You both know this day and every day after it, there is a sentence to be carried out. There always is. The condemned arrives, flanked by guards, shoulders hunched beneath the weight of the crowd's attention. You see in him the same fear, the same disbelief that you have witnessed 100 times before. He is younger than you, older than your children, just another body to be erased, another story the city will tell itself to feel safe. You go through the motions, reading the order, tying the knots, offering the priest his moment of prayer. The crowd gathers, hungry for spectacle, for justice, for something to talk about over supper. You keep your eyes low, your voice steady, your hands sure. You do not think of mercy or vengeance or whether the city is better for what you do. You think only of getting it right, of making it quick, of avoiding the chaos that comes when the rope snaps or the axe fails. When it is done, the crowd scatters. The priest departs, his blessing hanging in the air like mist. The city guard draws the body away. You clean the scaffold, sweeping sand over the stains, wiping down the wood. No one offers thanks. No one lingers. By midday, the square is already bustling with trade, laughter, the ordinary commerce of people who want only to forget. You walk home through the lanes, past the shuttered eyes, past the houses where you will never be welcome. Your wife is in the garden, tending a patch of onions that never quite thrive. She glances up, nods, then returns to her work. The children are at their chores, quieter than most. The crow waits on the roof, cocking its head as you pass. Inside, you tend to your own repairs, patching a roof tile, mending a cracked bucket, oiling the axe. The routine is its own kind of solace, a way to keep the world from coming apart, at least within these walls. You listen to the sounds of your family, the creak of floorboards, the clatter of dishes, the distant murmur of voices you almost recognize as your own. Evening falls. You sit by the hearth, staring into the embers, the weight of another day settling on your shoulders. Your wife sits across from you, her mending in her lap, her face caught between the glow of the fire and the shadow of everything unsaid. The children climb to their loft, footsteps soft, whispers even softer. You remember the words of the old woman in the cemetery, her warning not to let the living frighten you more than the dead. You wonder if she was right, if the living are truly the more dangerous, or if it is simply that the dead no longer expect anything of you. You find the bundle of herbs beneath your pillow, breathe in the scent, and settle into bed. Your wife lies beside you, her presence a comfort and a sorrow. In the dark, you reach for her hand. She does not pull away, but neither does she hold on. You both wait for sleep, for the slow turning of night to morning. And so the circle closes. Another day, another life measured out in silent endurance. You are the executioner. You are the city's secret, its shame, its necessary shadow. You have learned that nothing truly changes except the weight you carry, which grows day by day until you cannot remember a time when you were lighter. Yet you endure, because someone must. The city demands it. The people depend on it. And in the dark, with only the crow to witness, you whisper to yourself that perhaps, somewhere, in the space between sentence and silence, there is something like forgiveness, not from the city, not from the dead, but from the life you have lived and the one you might still find even now. Tomorrow you will wake and do it all again.